Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
Paying rent can feel like throwing money away. And when you're spending so much, it can be hard to see yourself buying a home. So Rocket Mortgage is helping you put your monthly rent towards home ownership with Rent Rewards. For the first time, save up to $5,000 off the cost of your first home just by paying rent. Only at Rocket Mortgage. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
You're listening to...
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
Lead, Brunson will drive, cutting hard. Got to go. What a pass by Brunson. What a finish by Hart. Here come the Celtics. It's Tatum on top. Tatum jab stepping. A three for the tie. Good. Got it.
Mike, another episode of They're Gonna Call It a Hot Foul, brought to you by the what?
The Fans First Sports Network, bitch. K-Town 214.
You gotta get better at that. You really struggle, Kimosabi, with that. With trying to get out who what part of the network we're from. But Mike,
I was diagnosed with ADHD, so I got an excuse.
Now who's a lot better in the clutch than you?
His name would be Purvis Ellison.
Yeah, Nervous Purvis, definitely. Yeah, hopefully in the next episode of the Celtic City, when we get into the 90s, they do a whole 50 minutes on Purvis Ellison.
And Eric
Montross. Yeah. Jason Tatum.
No, that would be Jason fucking Tatum.
Yeah.
Who's committing child abuse against the New York Knicks, according to Reggie Miller.
In particular, Mikal Bridges, who,
yes.
The wing stopper that they said they were getting, we could go back and pull up all the articles about the Knicks this offseason and how they were making moves and how this was moves to stop the Celtics. And the funny thing about that always was, to me, is one of the moves they made to stop the Celtics was bringing in Karl Anthony Towns, who is just dreadful on the defensive end, and I know he had a good offensive game last night, but when he isn't scoring, he's either giving up points or falling on his ass. That foul on Tatum, Tatum's three is what's going to get all the attention, but that foul on Tatum in the corner by Karl Anthony Towns, where he just couldn't go straight up and make it difficult, which is a smart move there, because you're a goofy son of a bitch that can't cover. So just jump as high as you can with the hand, do the cornet contest there. Instead, he fouls Tatum, and it gives the Celtics a chance to be in this game, tie this game, and eventually win this game. That's going to be the downfall. That is, whether it happens against the Celtics, which it definitely will, but there's also a chance these guys don't get out of the first round, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've changed my tune on the first round, but I agree with you, man. It wasn't just that was a horrible play like that. And then the fact that he was arguing the foul was, what was Reggie Miller looking at? Was Jason Tatum out of bounds? But
I think he was trying to figure out what they were arguing.
Maybe that's what it was.
I think they were trying to figure out, okay, he's really protesting here. What exactly could it be? And it was just I think embarrassment. Well, then, he had to have known he hit him in the arm, right?
I would hope so. Yeah, man, and it wasn't just that play. There were a lot of plays where he was the turnstile last night, or just not contesting at all against Porzingis. And I actually thought that Mitchell Robinson, when he came into the game, I thought he actually made Porzingis work for everything. And then obviously on the offensive end, what he was doing on the glass, and then that shot block on Tatum.
Which you never see. You never, ever see that. I thought
Tatum.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, even though Towns got all those points, I thought in the second half the Knicks were better when Towns was on the bench and Mitchell Robinson was in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
and I thought that lineup of Towns and Robinson was actually a pretty good idea against Tibbs, but he only went to it in the second quarter and then never went to it again. The other guy they brought in, Mike, 5 first-round picks, Mikal Bridges. You mentioned what Reggie Miller said, and hopefully I can squeeze in a clip of that on this pod. But
yeah,
Tatum
man.
abused him in the mid-range, just abused him, and Bridges can't contest his shot.
And the thing is, like with Bridges and Anunoby, I think their defense on Tatum's pretty good. Like I mean, they're there, they're in front of him. Um, Tatum just has their number. It's he just owns them, and I think it's unfair to Bridges because he got traded for 5 first-round picks. He's not a 5 first-round pick talent, but he's a good player. And Tatum he just dominates that matchup. It's some of the shots he hits are just like, I don't know, Jim, like that's special stuff, right? Like it's like MVP level stuff that Tatum's doing.
Yeah,
That
no,
mid-range game right before the playoffs, as you said to me last night, it's looking pretty good.
yeah, and that feels intentional. That feels like because it's been more of it lately. It feels like he's trying to get that ready, knowing that they're going to try to take different things away from him. So just add another thing to his bag. I mean, that last shot of the third quarter where they switched on Tatum, then threw a double,
Oh,
and he hits that fadeaway going towards the baseline. Um, that
basketball horny was,
yeah,
oh
that's there you
my
go.
God.
And we're not even mentioning the night that Kristaps Porzingis had, where he hit seven
Right.
threes. Luke Cornett continues to be a valuable piece and giving them good minutes all the time. They're just a really good basketball team, and they did this on a night where no Al Horford, Brown, even when
Yep.
he was in there, really was a non-factor. And then they didn't play Porzingis for most of the overtime. This is this is going to just be demoralizing to the Knicks, who I think fancied themselves as a team that could come out of the East and win a championship.
Yeah, I don't think fans think that anymore, especially New York fans. It's funny, like the Knicks fans like hate this team, but like they're still a good team. They won 50 games. They just, you made the wrong moves. I really think if it wasn't Karl Anthony Towns and maybe a more defensive minded center, this could have been a legit maybe contender for the Celtics. But these wings, they just can't stop Brown and Tatum. And Brown's hurt right now, but when Brown's healthy, they can't stop him either. And the Celtics just have their number. Demoralizing is the right word for it, Chip. It really, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Celtics sweep in the second round.
No, that wouldn't shock me at all. If I'm being honest with you, Mike, I don't think the Celtics play more than 10 games through the first 2 rounds right now. I just don't think there's going to be much of a challenge here. I really don't. And that has more to do, I think, with the Celtics
Well, I'm going
than
to
the
challenge you on
competition.
that. Yeah, I'm going to challenge you on that in the first round against Orlando today with Jaylen Brown's injury. But
Uh,
yeah, I would agree with you that I don't think anybody in the East is beating the Celtics. I'm certainly going to go there.
Orlando's not going to pass 5 games against the Celtics. They're a nice team. They have a couple of long wins. Even without Brown, if Porzingis is playing at this level, it's going to be a short series, especially if Tatum's doing what he's doing too.
Yeah, well, I think it could go 6. I think that because of the defense that Orlando plays might keep them in 2 games. And if the Celtics have a bad shooting night, I think that could cost the Celtics a game, like it did last year in the playoffs. Most of their losses, they really didn't get outplayed. Just one team would go nuts from 3, and the Celtics wouldn't hit them. So I always count like one loss every series with that happening against Boston. And I don't know. I just got this feeling that Orlando's going to steal one with their 2 very talented wings are going to show up in this series and make it a little bit more competitive than it has to be.
It's possible. I don't foresee it. It's possible. Maybe
And with the way Caldwell Pope is
Yeah.
shooting the 3, they're a little bit more dangerous at home than they were.
I think it's much more likely to be a sweep than to go 6. More likely, not much more. I think it's more likely to be a sweep than it would be to go 6 games.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah. I look at the Celtics team right now, particularly the way they play on the road, and we can throw their home record and say, that's been a disappointment. I think a lot of that had to do with how they were playing in, you know, December through
February.
February there.
Yeah.
And I also think if they need to turn it on there, they will. If you want to know my truth on this team, and I mean, a lot of this has, if Jaylen Brown is as hurt as he looks right now, maybe this changes. But my truth is that I think this team, when they're at least close to healthy, is better than last year's team. And I think that's because of the level up that Jason Tatum's done. I think he has become so spectacular and he can beat you in so many ways. And his floor game is so good. And, I also think Porzingis is playing at just a different level. I think this team is better than they were last year. And I don't think the competition has stepped up that much. I think Cleveland obviously has in the East, but the rest of the East is not very good. And unless the Celtics somehow, this flips and the Knicks blow this 3 seed and the Celtics end up getting Indiana in the second round, then my tune will change on the level of difficulty for the series. But I just don't think the Celtics team is going to get challenged with these first 2 rounds very hard at all.
Yeah. The East has certainly taken a step back. I mean, the Damian Lillard injury was a big one, but even they weren't playing that great this year in Milwaukee. So I would agree, Jim. I think even if you look out west, some of those teams don't look as great as we thought they were either. Outside of the number 1 seed, you got Denver firing their coach right before the playoffs, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, no, that's nuts. I even forgot about that. I'm dying to know the backstory there with Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets. They also fired Calvin Booth, their general manager, so it was a complete overhaul. And I don't know what you're firing the general manager for when the owner doesn't allow you to spend it of tax.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So, like, what's going on? Is this is Jokic pissed about something? Is this like did the owner say something to these guys about the losing streak and they say, well, fuck you, you don't spend? Like, I need to know, like, what happened here. Because even if you don't like the job that Mike Malone has done this season, he is 2 seasons off from winning a championship. They were the favorite for most of last year. They've
always been good under him.
Yeah.
And he develops young players. He's always developed players. Look at Christian Braun.
Yeah.
I don't get the firing at all. There has to be something more to this story.
There has to be, and you don't typically fire a guy even mid-season unless it's very, very toxic in the locker room. Yeah. So maybe that's it. Maybe there's some toxicity. But if you're a Nuggets fan today, you got to think your season's over, right?
I would. Yeah, that's a really drastic move for an NBA title contender. And if Jamal Murray's healthy, they're a title contender.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. Like, that 2-man game in the fourth quarter with him and Jokic is the best in the NBA. And you're firing the coach who's been drawing that up. I don't know. That, to me, they haven't had Aaron Gordon for most of the season. Like, if they're healthy, they're right there with OKC. They can play with anybody. I don't understand. That's really bizarre to me.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's very, very weird. Mike, anything else you want to take away from the Celtics team over the last few nights, games or whatever, or just even last night?
My one concern that I'm watching is that obviously Jaylen Brown has nights where he feels good. At least we have that, because what I'm seeing right now is in the playoffs, he's probably going to have nights where his knee's feeling good and he's going to be Jaylen Brown. What I'm worried about is the inconsistency that's going to show up in his game and how that could hurt the Celtics. And That's not his fault. He's hurt. He's going to try to play through it. That thanks to him for doing that. I hope that he's not risking anything else to his future because they need him. He's a centerpiece to every plan they have. So, but for this season, I'm worried about the nights that they need him that he can't produce, and there will be nights where Jason Tatum does get shut down. Maybe that's in the NBA Finals, and Brown's been there to have his back, especially last year. So I mean, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah,
I think it makes their chances a lot harder to win it.
It's how they then do they start defending Tatum differently too? Do you start doubling more even when Brown's on the floor? Not a great situation. And the thing for me is, I think against most teams he'll be able to still score because he's so strong. He can get to a spot. Last night wasn't great, obviously, but for the most part, he can find his way to get to the spot where he wants to on the floor with his strength against matchups. The thing that
when Bridges blocked his shot last night, I mean, come on, that never happens with a healthy Jaylen Brown. He just jumps over that.
The thing that was just so concerning, that's been more concerning to me, is he has been so loose with the ball over these last, I don't know, 5 games or so. But all of them have resulted in turnovers. But it's the eye test tells you that it has not been as strong. And when things like that start to happen, that's a lot of times an indicator of health. And you're trying to overcompensate for different things, and you end up losing focus in different areas. And it's a part of his game that he's really worked on. It's still not a strength, but it's something that's really improved. And that has hurt them more than his scoring or whatever in the past when things have gone wrong for the Celtics in the playoffs. And that's just been the part that's been concerning for me. I think the good news is that the Celtics, they got 3 games left. He doesn't have to play much or at all in any of them. I know he's trying to get to 65 games, so that's 2 more games where he's got to play 15 minutes. And then the playoffs won't begin, I don't think, until the 18th or 19th for the Celtics, because the play-in's the 15th of April.
And you don't need him in the first round.
No.
Technically, he could sit.
He could. That would really concern me if they're sitting him, though. That would tell me, if they're playing him now, then have to sit him, then that's a real injury if he's starting to sit in the playoffs. That's a real injury. So depending on whether, how they do it, if they have him go out and play 15 minutes tonight and then they have him play 15 minutes on the 11th, then you can give him from the 11th to like the 18th off. And that's a full week. And I'm assuming this isn't a serious thing. And maybe with that type of rest, it would be good enough. But if it's something else and he's just playing to get to the 65 games when they have this on the line, I think everyone has the right to be pissed. I'm gonna hold my powder until I see what he looks like in the playoffs. If he looks healthy.
Especially when, quite frankly, if we're living in reality and not on Fantasy Island, he doesn't have a shot. He doesn't. He hasn't had a good enough season to be considered for any of those teams. And he's a great player, obviously, but it's not like last year where he'd be getting robbed, where he should have been, all defensive first team and one of the 3, all NBAs.
So the first round actually doesn't even start till the 19th. And where it's a play-in, the Celtics probably won't start until the 20th.
Yeah, so that's a lot of time off.
That's a long time off. So he'll have plenty of time between round 1 in the play-in. I mean, if he doesn't play the last game of the season, you'll be off from the 11th to like the 20th. So that's it. That's a significant amount of time off. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And as I was saying, like, he's not an all-NBA player this year. He's only shooting like, I don't know, 32% from 3. I mean, it's been a down year.
I was wondering if he's going more for the trying to get on an NBA all defensive team this year. is what was more of the goal here.
Maybe he's he's obviously he's consistent night to night, a high end defender. So maybe he's there. I don't know enough around the league who he's competing with for that. For this year on the Celtics, I think the only shoe-in for that is Derek White, because of his shot blocking. That's going to get him onto one of the all defensive teams, I would think. And Tatum will probably get overlooked, although he probably deserves to be on an all defensive team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tatum's is the first team All NBA shoe-in, I would think, at this point. If we,
yeah, but I'm saying
yeah.
defensive team. I mean, what he does. He got beat up by Karl Anthony Towns last night, but he typically wins that matchup defensively. So,
yeah, and that just, I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, it's just more of a size thing, and that's being without Al Horford, and that's the reason why you saw that last night. Yeah, no, the Brown thing, that's the thing to watch right now, and to me, that's the only thing that, knock on wood, that really concerns me going into these playoffs right now. And I'll say it here on the pod right now too, Mike. I think Cleveland can extend the series and make it a bit longer, but I think if the Celtics are healthy, the Cavs do not match up against this team at all. And I think the playoffs are all about matchups. You can throw regular season.
Yeah, can I ask you a question though?
Yep.
Defensively,
Mm-hmm.
what have you seen this season that tells you the Celtics match up with Donovan Mitchell at all?
Well, Donovan Mitchell kills them. There's no doubt about that. He kills them. But it's one guy, and I think you can overcome one guy. I mean, now if the Celtics just go cold for a whole series, then that's one of the things that's a risk with the Celtics team because they shoot so many threes.
Right.
But I think if you look at how the Cavs match up against the Celtics, they just peppered with bad matchups all over the court.
Yeah.
And Hunter helps them some, but not nearly enough, as we saw the game here at the Garden when they were without Porzingis, where they just killed them. They were without Holiday too, where they just killed them with the wings, scoring whatever they wanted. I think Evan Mobley, to me, might, would be the X factor in that series, but I think if Porzingis is healthy, it kind of wipes that away. So
let me ask you a question about that. If you're coaching the Celtics, you get to be Missoula and you're planning for that series. Are you going into it thinking, guys like Hunter, guys like Garland, guys like Mosley, we're really going to overplay on those guys and take them away, and we're going to rely on our one-on-one matchup with Mitchell? Or are you going into it saying, we want to get the ball out of Mitchell's hands quickly, slow the Cavs down, and have other guys beat us?
No, I wouldn't go in I mean, later in the game, if, it's close, sure. I wouldn't. I think the worst thing that you can have happen in the playoffs is other guys start to feel comfortable. I really wouldn't change much of what we're doing if what the Celtics are doing if Porzingis is healthy. I don't know, Mike, if you saw it last night. I'm sure you did, but like his defense on Brunson was effective last night. Like, was really good. I think Brunson won like something 2 of 5 or 2 of 6. He had to do a lot of work to create any type of room, because Porzingis.
Man, he's good though, isn't he?
He is. But Porzingis has figured out that drop coverage. He can give more space and close late and still be a major problem on these guys because he's just so fucking long, and he's giving so much space that it's really hard to pump fake him into a foul. So it's like he's made such an impact on that end. Everyone, focuses on his offense because it's, unicorn-like what he can do, so they say. But what he's done on the defensive end for this team has been huge. And
I think where he helps too, Cleveland, when they had that comeback and then really they just took over that fourth game offensively. Well, the rebounding, but more importantly, it's taken away that first action with Cleveland and forcing them to run their half-court offense so they're not shooting the ball quickly. As you alluded to this in previous pods, when the Celtics can get into their half-court defensive sets and teams are moving the ball, looking for the best shot, that's when the Celtics are really at their best because of Porzingis. When you attack them quickly and you take the first best look, that's when you can really beat up on the Celtics. And that's what Cleveland did in that fourth game. And I think with KP out there, he actually takes away a lot of that.
No, they didn't
half.
really do that in the fourth quarter, Mike. They with Porzingis
Well, during the
out,
comeback, they did.
with Porzingis out in that fourth quarter, they just found matchups because there was guys out versus Celtics, and then they got offensive rebounds. They played slow. They played quite slow in that fourth quarter.
Well, playing slow is not going to work.
No. I mean, versus Celtics that night, it was going to work because of the matchups, and it just changes. You know, when you're able to have both Porzingis and Al Horford out there in the fourth quarter, it's another degree of difficulty that, especially the Al Horford that we see right now. Yeah, I think this Celtics team is just on another level matchup wise. And we can wait to talk about the finals. We should still focus on the first round here, but I just think they're on another matchup wise right now against the East.
So good transition. We've already had a full podcast with a guest from Orlando to talk about the Magic. I don't want to spend a ton of time on Atlanta, and it's quite frankly, Jimmy, if Atlanta loses to Chicago, which the way they're playing, it's possible.
Oh, Chicago lost last night, yeah,
but they still have the same record.
Yeah.
So, one of those teams is going to be the 8th seed. And matter of fact, Miami's right there too. But I feel like Atlanta's only good against the Boston Celtics. I don't understand why they're so bad against everybody else, because when they play the Celtics, they look like a whole different team. I know they let guys go at the trade deadline. That certainly hurt them, but they still have the Dyson Daniels. They still have their length. But man, they're terrible. They're an awful basketball team, and I just don't get it because they have a lot of talent, I think, and they seem to play the Celtics tough. Other than that, I really they don't defend at all. From what I watched last night against Orlando, what I've been watching recently with them, there's not a high level of defensive intensity that we saw during the play-in tournament. They make a lot of mistakes because they have a lot of young players out there offensively. So like a lot of dumb shots, but the talent is there. Their draft pick is good. It's a good young player. Trae Young is obviously good. Their center is talented. They have length, but and obviously Dyson Daniels is a great defender, but they just can't get it together. I don't know how to break this team down. I really don't.
Yeah, when they beat the Celtics, they were playing really well at the time. I think they went all the way. Did they go to the championship in the play-in tournament, or did they lose in the semifinals? I
forget.
Well, either way, they played really well. I believe they beat the Knicks in Madison Square Garden to continue to advance. And they looked like a team that could be a problem, just in terms of being a fun team and maybe getting into the playoffs and challenging higher seeds. And then they went into a lull. They made the trade with Hunter. They brought in Niang and Levert, who have been pretty good for them over in Atlanta. But yeah, I tell you what, you get them in a one-game play-in. Trae Young's the most dangerous guy on the court in those situations. So although if you start in a team, you would take Banchero, without hesitation, but I think in a one game playing like that, I'd be more scared of Trae Young. I think there's a real chance that we could play the Hawks. And they do have some good young players. I think this is a much different Celtics team than the Hawks played earlier in the season. When they beat them a couple times, that was kind of an unfocused, get through the, January, February months. Celtics team, Porzingis was they're integrating him back in. Trae Young, though, look, of all the play-in teams, Trae Young is the guy that probably give the Celtics the most trouble. He's a tough matchup. Even against Porzingis' drop, he's going to find ways to get what he wants. I mean, he can shoot out by the logo on the floor. When he gets going, he
might be the best passer in the NBA.
I was just going to say that. You stole the words from my mouth. So
sorry.
No, it's all good. He can steal a game by himself. Like he's that good. He can't steal a series by himself, but he can definitely steal a game. And we saw that 2 years ago when he played the Celtics in the playoffs, and he came in and stole Game 5 in the Garden. So
Yep.
he's that good. Dyson Daniels really, I don't think anyone gave Tatum more fits than Dyson Daniels this year defensively. So like they have some pieces that are really good. Niang has typically played well against the Celtics. But, Ricochet, the rookie, Niang, Okongwu, those are guys that the Celtics can just feast off of.
Yeah.
And
I think maybe
and
in a
Trey
couple of years,
Young, and
yeah,
Trey Young, those are guys the
yeah,
Celtics can just feast on. And, unless they're missing shots, the Celtics are probably going to score 120 a game during the series.
I would agree. And maybe in a couple of years, Ricochet could be somebody, or Ricochet, um, that does become a better defender. But right now, it's not there. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he already is pretty good. But
Yeah.
yeah. So that, I mean, and trading Hunter away obviously takes away a lot. I think different with Orlando. There's a different kind of disappointment I have with Atlanta than Orlando. Orlando was injuries that really put them where they are. Atlanta, I don't think there's any excuse to be 8 games under 500. I really don't. I don't know if it's coaching. They've been through a lot of coaches there. I don't know if it's Trey Young and he's got to move on. But I feel like the GM there actually put together a real roster this year, with guys playing in actual positions, which was something they never had. They had good rotations with, a bench that could compete. I'm pretty sure Clint Capella went to the bench for this year, so that was the backup center now. I just I don't think there's any excuse for them to be this bad. And if I was an Atlanta fan, for the 7 Atlanta Hawk fans that there are in Atlanta, I would be really disappointed with this team this year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're limited though, Mike. If you look at their roster right now, it's a limited roster. They're starting Niang. Like that just goes to show they have no depth at all. So I think trading away what they had took away a team that could have been pretty
Yep.
good. I don't understand the trade in the sense of
I don't get
like
that
it
trade.
didn't really tank your season. Like if you
No.
wanted to get into the lottery, so I didn't really understand it. You ended up maybe you could have ended up out of the plane potentially if you kept Hunter. I probably not, but and then the other two teams, the Celtics might play the Bulls and the Heat. I think if they do flip Atlanta, maybe spend some time on them. The Bulls, that's a 4 game series. I know Kobe White's playing well. I know they have Vucevic and they have some other nice pieces, but that's a 4 game series. And then the Heat, we know who they are, and we can
Watch
get
it be
into
the Heat.
them. Yeah,
Unbelievable if it's the Heat.
I know.
Um, Unbelievable if that happens. Yeah, I mean it's all boring, Jim. All those teams suck. So, um, did you wanna say anything about Celtic City or save that for our next pod? What are you thinking?
We can save it to the next pod. I thought these last couple of episodes on the 80s were great. The two quick things off the top that stood out to me was just the impact of the injuries, and not just on the seasons. And we knew that like after the 86 season, like we knew McHale's foot injury in 87, and you knew Walton never really played again, and you know what happened with Bird's back and feet, and the damage they did, and probably curtailed careers a lot shorter than they should have. Um, I don't think fans understand is just how much it impacts their lives.
Yeah,
Walton said something that it was quick, so people could have missed it. But he said, I've been in a dark place since then. Health is everything. And it just made you say, oh man, this guy's been in pain his whole life. Yeah. And,
yeah,
he would never trade in what he got out of UCLA and the Trailblazers and the Celtics and the championships and the glories and to play with Bird and things like that. But it hasn't been fun for him. It wasn't fun for him probably after retirement. He'd just
no,
be in that much pain with his feet and his knees all the time. And I mean, at times it looked like McHale was going to cry. when he was talking about the pain he had to go through. And, you heard Bird you say, I'm worried about being in a wheelchair. So, like, that part to me stood out. And then the other thing that stood out was Ainge basically saying Red should have made. You didn't trade him for Perkins. You didn't trade. Look at these guys; they're washed up. And his line, Red said they'll be Celtics forever, and he said they already are. And he goes, and that stuck with me. And obviously, that's foreshadowing to the past Garnett trade, which I'm sure they're going to get into in a couple episodes. But those were the two things that stood out.
Yeah, and he was right. I mean, Pierce and Garnett was Celtics forever, even though he unloaded them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he was correct, that the Celtics should have made those trades back in the 80s, but it was certainly foreshadowing it too. Some of the guys he named that they would have got were good players, but not great players. Like Detlef Schrempf had a great career, but I don't know if he was really ever an all-star when he played with the Supersonics. I just remember him being like a really solid player too.
Yeah, but if you start to look at it from the aspect of Parrish was still good, so they'd keep him. You bring in Schrempf, Perkins, and there was another name in there in a draft pick, and you're now pairing them with Reggie Lewis. That's a good team.
Yeah, that's a good team. I mean, certainly.
It's a really good team, and if you anticipated Reggie to make the rise that he was going to make, that's a team that could contend in the East. Probably never beat the Bulls, but at least be a contender.
Yeah, I mean, Perkins and Detlef Schrempf played into the late 90s. Both played in the NBA Finals with the Supersonics. And then I know Schrempf was on those Portland Trailblazers teams even after that.
Yep.
That were battling with the Lakers. So that guy had a long, good career. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Perkins was a real good player, too.
He was. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to the next pod. Interesting game tonight with Orlando. I don't know who's actually going to play for the Celtics, but Orlando's coming off a tough game too, a back-to-back. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think the Celtics go for the record tonight?
I do, Jim.
Yeah.
I do. I think it matters to these guys. After seeing the way they acted on that road trip with that last victory in Memphis.
Well, you can't fade them after going 48 minutes last night, right?
I wouldn't, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, he's kind of nuts.
He is kind of nuts.
Yeah. All right.
Tom Brady in him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He's I think it's a discussion for another day, but if they win another one, it's going to be an interesting discussion of where on the Mount Rushmore does he go with the Celtics, because he'd certainly be on it now. So
yeah, I would agree with that. All right.
Talk to everyone soon.
See ya.